We offer our appreciation to all of our local first responders, county employees, medical personnel, those who work to restore power, our first line of defense for their tireless work in preparation for the storm and in response to those in need. We also offer our thanks to those who've already brought assistance and pray for the needs of those individuals who have been dealt a major blow by the storm. We pray for food, water, shelter, clothes, and medicine for those who need it most in these days. And we also pray for long-term commitment and vision to promote the work of rebuilding. Last week marked the 18th anniversary of September 11th, 2001. Even as the painful memories of 9/11 are seared into our consciences, we trust in your redemptive power to bring healing and new life even out of tragedy. May we never forget those who risked or lost their lives to save others. And we ask for renewed commitment to work for peace and justice throughout our troubled communities and world. At this meeting, there will be consideration of Alzheimer's disease awareness. We pray for those individuals who are impacted personally by memory loss. We lift up the caregivers who support loved ones with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. We recognize, God, that we as a community should be measured not by how we take care of our strongest citizens, but by how we support and care for those who have needs. May we in Dare County be known for our compassion and our support for those who could use extra assistance. And we pray for all the business before the board today. Help all those gathered to listen, to be open to new insights and perspectives. And for this specific meeting today, God, we ask for you to guide our deliberations. And may the decisions that are made promote justice, righteousness, and love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Moore. Appreciate it. May we all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner House is not with us this evening. He has an excused absence. He is out of town on business, so we will miss Commissioner House this evening. And we're also, I'd like to recognize former Dare County Commissioner, Ms. Marguerite Umflett is with us this evening. Marguerite, thank you for being here this evening and being with us. County Manager, I will turn it over to you.
Chairman, item 1 on the agenda is the chairman's opening remarks.
Thank you. I've got 2 items to go over this evening, and one will be rather lengthy. So if I can you'll bear with me, I would appreciate it. First item is College of the Albemarle. I received a letter from the interim president, Travis Tryford, and it's also signed by Marion Harris, who is chair of the Board of Trustees. It says, Dear Chairman Woodard, Tuesday was a very exciting day in the life of the College of the Albemarle. The college is very appreciative of the support received from the Dare County Commissioners and the continued support provided in upcoming endeavors. The appropriations of funds for scholarships for the graduates of high school within Dare County shows the strong support the commissioners have demonstrated for COA. The approval of the Memorandum of Understanding solidifies a long-standing partnership between the Dare County Commissioners and the College of the Albemarle. We are also excited about the new facility for the college that is in the planning stages. We look forward to the new spaces at the former Manteo Middle School location. This should not only enhance the facility's availability to our students, but it will also increase the visibility of the College of Dare County. The fact that the county has included an addition to the new facility, its capital improvement plan further suggests that the current events are part of a long-term partnership between the county and the college. We want to express our heartfelt appreciation for the Dare County Board of Commissioners' support and acknowledge our excitement for the great things we see happening for the Dare County campus. And that's addressed to my board, all of our board members. Are very appreciative of your support and what we've been able to do. For those of you who are not aware, College of the Albemarle is the oldest community college in the state of North Carolina. And this year marks the 50th anniversary of the College of Albemarle campus in Dare. 50 years. Excuse me. Next item I have certainly has brought a lot of angst this time of year to our citizens and our visitors throughout Dare County. And I'm referring to the recent hurricane, Dorian, which for a name sure packed a punch for us. I want to take this time to reiterate to our citizens and our visitors the importance of emergency management. A lot of issues, a lot of topics are thrown around, and a lot of it's misinformation. And I think it's important that I take this amount of time to share with our citizens and our visitors, those of you who are watching live this evening, those of you who will watch at a later date, the video of our meeting this evening. Please know that Emergency Management Act is an act that are state statutes. All of our authority is from state statutes, comes from the state of North Carolina. In fact, 166A-19.1, the purpose is to reduce the vulnerability to damage, injury, and life and property. Prepare for efficient rescue, care, and treatment. Provide for a rapid, orderly rehabilitation of persons and restoration of properties. And finally, a part of that purpose is to provide coordination of activities. There is another part to that Management Act, 166-19.22. A county may declare a state of emergency only if an emergency exists. Well, let me give you the timeline, and this is specific to Hatteras only. The control group, and I will tell you who's made up of the control group in just a moment. I've done that earlier in the last meeting, but you need to know who the participants are. On Monday, September the 2nd, the control group declared a state of emergency. On Tuesday, September the 3rd, a mandatory evacuation was issued for our visitors. On Wednesday, 9/4, a mandatory evacuation was issued for everyone. On Friday and Saturday, September the 5th and 6th, we experienced Hurricane Dorian. Saturday, September the 7th, power was returned to Hatteras Island with scattered outages. Roads were open and they were passable. All emergency services were up, running, and available. Water and other public services were up and running also. The emergency conditions ended. Volunteer organizations, our Department of Social Services, was on the ground. As a matter of fact, the county manager, myself, and the park superintendent, Halleck, met Commissioner House the very next morning, Saturday morning, after the storm occurred, early that morning.
Commissioner
And-
Couch.
Excuse me.
Couch.
Excuse me, thank you. It got him for some reason. Thank you, Rob. That very next morning, and we were on the island all day long, reviewing what was happening on the island. Permanent residents and non-resident employees of critical businesses were allowed re-entry. On Sunday, the 8th, scattered power outages were resolved. Non-resident property owners and non-resident employees allowed re-entry. On Tuesday, the 10th, visitors returned to the tri-villages. Thursday, the 12th, visitors were allowed south of the tri-villages. Incremental reentry over 3 days in the tri-villages from the date the emergency conditions ended. Incremental reentry was over 5 days for the remaining portions of Hatteras Island from the date that the emergency conditions ended until full reentry. Now, here's what we need to consider. We must need to consider as a control group the balance needs of all. Property management firms want to wait as long as possible to get as many units available as possible. And that's certainly understandable. Retail, restaurant, small businesses want to open as soon as possible. They don't have any trip insurance. Short season, no livelihood for their staff. Waiters, waitresses, clerks, etc., want to work, living paycheck to paycheck. They need the paychecks, in some cases, just to pay their car payments or even to buy food. 2 days makes a tremendous difference in their lives. Now, we just didn't willy-nilly make these decisions. We talked to the folks on Hatteras Island. Commissioner Couch is out in the community and participated in every discussion and every decision on the control group. Understood that 100% of the rental units were not ready. However, many units were. Property managers can call those rental units that they are not ready and let them know, rather than ask the county to completely shut everything down. Now, folks, somebody is unhappy at every reentry. We have reentered early and late and have had folks upset either way. Not possible to satisfy all. But by staging and doing incremental reentry, we are trying to have slow and orderly reentry, which helps officials trying to try to manage reentry. It helps the property managers by giving them time to prepare their homes. It helps accommodate the workforce, retailers, restaurants, by not prolonging reentry unnecessarily. Looking back on the last few weeks, I'm grateful that there was no loss to life due to Hurricane Dorian. While we had families and businesses who suffered losses, we should all take comfort that nobody in Dare County lost their life due to the storm. I'm grateful that the Dare County Board of Commissioners, my fellow commissioners, have the control group. They're a dedicated group of community leaders whose decisions and actions are crucial to keeping our community safe when we have to face emergency situations such as Hurricane Dorian. The control group has proven to be an efficient and effective group because it brings together leaders throughout all of Dare County so that together they can determine what is in everyone's best interest. Now, let's face it, it's a complex issue, folks, such as a hurricane that has a lot of important components. There's no way the control group can make everyone happy. But let me assure you of one thing. The Dare County Control Group is serious about its obligation to make the tough decisions that are necessary to keep our community safe and viable. The Dare County Control Group consists of myself, chairman of the Dare County Board of Commissioners, the mayors or representative from each of the incorporated municipalities: Duck, Southern Shores, Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills, Nags Head, Manteo. The superintendent of the National Park Service, Mr. Dave Halleck, the Dare County Sheriff, Mr. Doug Dowdy. Through this whole ordeal and storm, maintains close contact with a network of his deputies stationed all throughout the county. The control group leans on comprehensive support personnel that advises on the infrastructure, the resources, and the conditions. The group includes law enforcement, NCDOT, all utility companies, our Health and Human Services Department, our EMS, our Dale County Schools, the Vistas Bureau, and nonprofit groups. The control group also benefits from the leadership and experience of Dare County Emergency Management Director Drew Pearson, who is with us this evening, who has at his disposal the support and resources of the National Weather Service, who was on site, one of their members was on site for every single control group meeting we held and was stationed here throughout the storm. First-hand knowledge and PowerPoint presentation of every single thing that was going on with the storm at every single moment. The Hurricane Center and the North Carolina Department of Emergency Management. I can assure you, as chairman of the control group, that during our deliberations, we reached out to key people in the community for their input. One of the people I leaned on during the Hurricane Dorian was none other than Commissioner Couch, who is a Dare County commissioner who lives and works on Hatteras Island and is very close to the conditions and the needs of the people and businesses on the island. As I mentioned, the very next morning, county manager, myself, Superintendent Halleck left early to go to Hatteras Island and spend a day with Commissioner Couch and reviewing what was going on and what damage was taking place on Hatteras Island, and we were there all day. I'm grateful for the council and knowledgeable and experienced people like Commissioner Couch, and I appreciate his involvement before and during and certainly after the storm. The control group took all the input we had into consideration in making the mandatory evacuation order. Then, following the storm, we carefully analyzed the infrastructure and community resources needed to get our community safely back to normal in a safe, expeditious, and orderly fashion. Folks, this is a complex process that involves consultation with NCDOT on the road conditions, consultation with the power company officials, including Dominion Power, Cape Hatteras Electric Company, and the Tideland Electric. Assessment of the county's ability to provide safe drinking water. Analysis of the county's ability to provide access to medical care. A determination of whether commodities such as groceries were even available. Additionally, we discussed the impact on key industry such as tourism and retail businesses. Now, the control group has the challenge of looking at all the available information and making the best possible decision that will do the most good for the county. First and foremost, we have to consider the public safety concerns, and we will do that above all means, every storm, every situation. After these have been met, to carefully balance the needs of our non-resident property owners along with our business community, including our retail establishments, property management companies, and other tourism providers. This is a delicate balancing act that is done in a careful and meaningful way by the control group. Following each storm event, the emergency management director leads us in a post-event analysis so we can assess every aspect of what was done and how we can possibly improve in the future. Part of this analysis includes listening carefully to the input we receive from the community and our business partners. This post-event analysis is something we will continue to do so the control group can continually learn and improve on how we address emergency situations in the future. Once again, I want to personally thank all the members of the control group and the support group and commend the network of first responders who once again were on the front lines serving the people in Dare County during the Hurricane Dorian. I mean, EMS had folks all over this county stationed on Hatteras Island and on the northern beaches, just as well as the Sheriff's Department. Our social services folks were down right after the storm to assess whatever needs that the community needed. Our park superintendent, Superintendent Halleck, had his folks help with reentry on the island. The list goes on and on and on of the support group that help us try to get back to normalcy. Again, I'm grateful that there was no loss of life in Dare County, and we look forward to hearing from our residents, property owners, and visitors as we continue to learn this storm as part of our ongoing preparedness for future emergencies. Thank you all for allowing me to take this a little extra time to explain the control group and the situation and what took place prior to and after the storm. County Manager?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to item 3 on the agenda. This is a proclamation for Alzheimer's awareness, and Gail Sinesso is here for that.
Good evening, Gail. It's always a pleasure to see you.
It's always wonderful to be here, and thank you for all the good work that you've done throughout our county in the storm. It's overwhelming to someone like me, what you've had to do. And I also wanted to thank Reverend Moore for mentioning the challenges of caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's. I just wanted to give you a little overview of what GEM does. And to thank you for recognizing World Alzheimer's Day. This is a world problem. This is a global problem. And joining our local community in raising awareness and promoting better care for individuals living with Alzheimer's and related dementias. We thank the many programs, services, individuals, people. The whole community has joined in supporting our seniors, and we are very grateful for that. GEM has provided a wide range of programming to over 125 families over a year. Dementia is a disease that has progression, and GEM prides itself on being an organization that works with people from just being diagnosed to still living in the community, which is an underserved area of dementia care. Most of the information that you will get and the programs and services that you see are geared for people already placed. So we provided care for our community. One family member said, what GEM provided me is a window into a world I had been both reluctant and ill-equipped to enter, as well as additional tools to assist me in navigating that world's thoroughfares. Repetition, compassion, routine, and caregiver support are mainstays of that world. GEM and the local organizations co-hosting its activities affirm these values for Darien Currituck residents, day in and day out. And that was written by Lainey Reed, and some of you might know her. She's an incredible singer. It takes a village. And just to mention some of the people that support our seniors in GEM programs. In music, we've had the Lost Colony Choir visit our program for 12 years. The Outer Banks Chorus has supported our senior candle lighting for over 14 years. The Captain's Crew has performed for us, just playing Dixieland. The Riptides, of course, I have a little passion for the Riptides, but you want to see people dance, come and watch the Riptides with our population. Nature Out Loud, and of course, Angelo Sinesso is at a lot of our events, so thank you. Programs, the Dare County Arts Council, we're partnering for our 5th year with the Power of Art. We'll be offering 2 art classes a month at no charge for our seniors, one at the Dare County Center and one at the Baum Center. The Master Gardeners, Cooperative Extension, organizations, the Outer Banks Association of Realtors, the North Carolina Aquarium, Elizabethan Gardens, College of the Albemarle. I am so excited. I've got some wonderful news that I'm going to share with you a little later. Foundations, the Outer Banks Community Foundation, the North Carolina Community Foundation, the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. It takes a village. This care is not funded in typical ways. There's no built-in program for people in early to mid-stage dementia that will pay for their care. Clubs, the North Banks Rotary, Roanoke Island Women's Club, Outer Banks Women's Club, Mommy and Me. They visit our Harmony Cafe, and this Mommy and Me is children under 5 and under. Restaurants, the Black Pelican, Pigman's Barbecue. They provide lunch for 40 to 50 to 60 people for us at our Harmony Cafes at no charge, delivered with paper and dessert and fruit. Mako Mike's Brewing Station and the churches of our community. They've stepped up and really supported GEM. I cannot say enough about Kitty Hawk United Methodist Church. They house our Harmony Cafe since 2016, and they host our Friday program, Meaningful Days, and they charge us nothing. And they give us this beautiful space, this beautiful kitchen, and this wonderful group of volunteers. Of course, we don't want to leave out the Unitarian Church, Holy Redeemer, St. Andrews, Collington Methodist, Mount Carmel, All Saints, and there's many other churches that have supported us. It takes a village. GEM and our board members and community volunteers have provided 815 hours at Meaningful Days, 1,640 hours for Harmony Cafe and art classes. The grand total for those hours is 2,454 hours of volunteering, valued at roughly $61,350. GEM had the first adult day program in Dare County in 2001. We had the first Alzheimer's workshop here in Dare County in 1998. We had the first memory cafe in Dare County in 2016. And this is my happy news. We are partnering with the College of the Albemarle to provide full scholarships to certified nurse aides to receive 30 hours of dementia hands-on specific care. And we're so excited about that. And that was made possible by the North Banks Rotary and the College of the Albemarle. And even more exciting is Outer Banks Home Care said that if their employees have this certification in dementia care, they will pay them a higher hourly wage. So we're really excited about the first that GEM has brought to Dare County. I thank you so much for your time and attention, and I beg Bobby, as he always does for me, is to please read the proclamation.
Sure. This is a proclamation for World Alzheimer's Month, whereas September 2019 will mark the 8th World Alzheimer's Month, an international campaign to raise awareness of dementia and challenge stigma. This year's campaign promotes the important message that while there is no cure, there is enlightened care. And whereas we can all raise awareness and promote DARE as a dementia-capable community by learning about dementia and providing programs and services for these citizens. And whereas people living with dementia and their care partners have an equal right to receive respect and inclusion and to diagnosis, quality care, and treatment. And whereas Alzheimer's and related dementias are devastating diseases affecting over 50 million people worldwide, 5 million people in the United States, and about 1,000 people in Dare County. And whereas dementia became a $1 trillion disease in 2018, informal dementia care provided is equivalent to 40 million full-time workers. A disproportionate number of women are informal caregivers. Most people with dementia do not receive a diagnosis or support. Today, almost 50 million people worldwide are living with dementia. As populations continue to age, the prevalence of dementia is expected to increase to 152 million people by 2050. And whereas, while there is no cure for Alzheimer's and related dementias, there is treatment in the form of person-centered care that will promote a healthier lifestyle for people with the disease. And whereas Dare County joins individuals, families, community friends, and caregivers living with the effects of Alzheimer's and related dementias in promoting care for those living with the disease, in supporting educational programs and direct support service for our Dare County families. And whereas Dare County joins Alzheimer's Disease International, honoring those living with Alzheimer's disease, those who have passed, and caregivers, both family and professional, at GEM's 12th annual candle lighting, November 3rd, 2019, and throughout the year. Now, therefore, the Dare County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims September 2019 as World Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month in Dare County and commends its observance to all citizens this the 16th day of September 2019.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
There's a motion on the floor by Vice Chairman Overman, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Ross and Bateman. So any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Gail,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
thank you
Yes,
for the
thank you.
many years of service that you've done in this. It's incredible, your hard work, and you're to be commended for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you. Thank you.
very much. Thank you.
Chairman, item 5 on the agenda is a resolution requesting North Carolina Dominion Power to replace utility poles. We prepared this at your request. I don't know if you have something to add, or you just like me to
I
read it.
don't. I just wanted you to prepare this for my fellow commissioners because all of us are concerned about this, and I'll certainly open it up to the floor after you
Sure.
read that resolution.
This is a resolution requesting North Carolina Dominion Power replace wooden utility poles with underground steel or concrete power poles along the Manteo Nags Head Causeway. Whereas Dare County is the statutorily designated entity to provide countywide emergency planning prior to disasters, it is also the designated entity to coordinate disaster recovery after emergency events such as hurricanes. And whereas the wooden utility poles along the Manteo Nags Head Causeway are a major component of power delivery to Roanoke Island and have repeatedly been damaged or broken during storms, including Hurricane Michael in 2018, Hurricane Matthew in 2016, and Hurricane Irene in 2011, and most recently in Hurricane Dorian. And whereas damaged and broken wooden utility poles pose a risk to public safety by causing road closures, hindering or preventing emergency response, impeding or preventing traffic flow, and creating power outages to a significant portion of the county. And whereas the power outages resulting from these broken poles pose a safety risk to those with power-dependent medical devices, cost residents and businesses lost wages and revenue, cause refrigerated frozen food losses, disrupt communication systems, disrupt traffic signals, and postpone and delay response and recovery. And whereas despite the best efforts of Dominion Power crews, the repair of these broken power poles often takes multiple days, significantly limiting response and recovery to the detriment of the Dare County citizens. And whereas because of Dare County's load capacity on current wooden poles along the Manteo Nags Head Causeway, the ongoing use of wooden poles will present the community with continued threat of interrupted electrical services during heavy winds and storms, with the problems associated with such interrupted power services. And whereas North Carolina Dominion Power has repeatedly performed significant replacement and repair to multiple broken poles along the Manteo Nags Head Causeway in order to restore power to the county's citizens. And whereas the replacement of wooden utility poles with steel or concrete poles or the use of underground utility lines would provide Dare County citizens with a lower risk of interrupted electric service in the event of heavy winds and storms, would have significant positive impacts on response and recovery, and would reduce the manpower and repeated extensive infrastructure repair for North Carolina Dominion Power. Now therefore be it resolved that the Dare County Board of Commissioners requests North Carolina Dominion Power make a commitment to customers to install a safer, more reliable, and more resilient electric system along the Manteo Nags Head Causeway by replacing the power lines along the Manteo Nags Head Causeway underground or replacing the wooden poles with concrete or steel poles adopted this the 16th day of September 2019.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the resolution as presented by Commissioner Bateman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Tobin and the Vice Chair.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have some,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Tobin.
you know, it was once said that the definition of is insane is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think I just needed to say that. And also, on the second paragraph of whereas, where it says component of power delivery to Roanoke Island, I think after that it should also include in mainland Dare County, because when that line goes down, it shuts off all of Mans Harbor, shuts off all of East Lake and Stumpy Point.
Good point.
Say that again, where?
Right after the Roanoke Island,
In which paragraph?
second paragraph,
Second paragraph.
and mainland Dare County. Because that line feeds the substation in Mans Harbor. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Tobin. Is everyone in agreement and approve the recommendation to add that portion to the resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you vote?
Yeah. Those in favor of that recommendation to amend, please approve by a yea or nay. Those in favor?
Yay.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, County Manager.
Next on the agenda is public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, now's the time that's been set aside for public comment. If you have public comment this evening and you've not signed up, please raise your hand and I'll recognize you. When I do, please come to the podium and state your name and where you're from. You have 5 minutes to speak. Green light will come on when your time begins. A yellow light will come on when you have about a minute left. And when the red light comes on, you need to conclude your remarks. The first person on the list is John Head.
Thank you, Bobby.
Welcome, Mr. Head.
Chairman. I'm here to discuss, obviously, reentry to Hatteras Island specifically, but for those who aren't aware, my wife and I own Colony Realty. We operate a management firm that does all long-term rentals. And so we see the boat captains, we see their mates, we see the receptionists, we see the park rangers, the school teachers, and the like. And we started our inspections of homes, at least I did, all the way up to South Snow Road on Saturday after the storm. And we began working our way south, so we were greatly appreciative when the roads were opening and we were moving through to see if there was any damage. But as we got to Hatteras, there was an evident that I wasn't seeing, because this is the first time in years that I haven't stayed for a storm. And the main reason is because it's so hard to get back. Obviously, we can control the road, but we're still going to have an issue for years to come in the Pea Island area in the canal zone. And there's some other areas that I would like to address, but one thing that I do agree with you on, Mr. Chairman, is there's a statute that referenced the way our plan is supposed to be activated, and you referenced it as 166A. As I was told earlier in the week, coming in down to the point of reopening, that we no longer have a Hatteras Island EOC. It hasn't been in place for 4 or 5 years. But this morning at a roughly, 9 o'clock, my smoke alarm went off at midnight. I didn't go back to bed till 4. So I'm still a little tired from pulling floors and not sleepless nights. But your plan on Dare County's website references the Hatteras Island EOC numerous times. So when I went and pulled this, I realized we're not following that same thing. Although you said by your own admission, you're communicating with those people on the ground, especially Danny, and property managers, I'm presuming alike. But when we got down to Hatteras and we're helping our neighbors pull their carpet and their flooring and getting crap on us on our hands and knees and insulation, they weren't ready yet. The people who were going to serve the meal at a restaurant that isn't open yet didn't have a job to go to. My wife, when she goes to check another house in Buxton, has to come back when they move the checkpoint. Can't get back in. She's showing her license, but I had inadvertently left my number 2 pass on the dash. But that same day, people were getting to an inn down the street past that checkpoint. Something's wrong with that picture. So if we're not going to follow this as the way it's spelled out, then we need to have public comment and public opinion put in here to change this emergency management plan. This is what you're bound by statute to follow. Is it not, Bobby?
No,
Then why is it on our website?
I don't know why it's on our website. I think it's an old plan that either hasn't been replaced. Drew, do you want to?
Yeah, let's address it. Yeah.
Drew?
Am I going to get my time while you guys talk?
Yeah, we'll stop your time. You'll get your 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So, Drew?
The 2007 version of the plan is the current plan. It's in the process of being updated. It is our emergency operations plan. The Hatteras EOC has not been in place since I've been here. When I talked to my predecessor, he said it was not used for several years before that. My apologies to the board for not getting the plan updated since I've been here. We have now hired an EM planner. James Wooten has been hired brought on to allow us to get our plans updated and to reflect how we do business today. And that will take place, and part of that is getting it to the board as we update our emergency operations plan. I hope to have that done within the next 6 months to a year. It's not, I got to bring everybody in to do that. So it's in process, and it should have been done before I got here. Should have been done as soon as I got here. It's now going to get done now that I have an EM planner on staff to do that. Hopefully that answers the questions on the status of the plan. It is posted on the website because it is a plan that is in place.
Thank you, Drew.
So, Mr. Chairman, you see my confusion. I go to the site to look to how this is going to be implemented and who would be really talking to that waitress or that mate that doesn't have a job right now, or maybe somebody has to be carted through the water between Hatteras and Frisco to get down and help their restaurant owner clean up. So that's the reason I look here and I see that within that same context, if this is what is being displayed, it says officials of the county were aware of the possible occurrence of an emergency disaster and they have acknowledged their responsibilities and execution of the plan will fulfill this responsibility as needed. This was the interesting part as I read it. And this is for educational for me too, and I don't want to throw stones at the reentry. We all know we went through Dorian. We all know it. my knees, my back, my hands are still feeling it. And most of the people that work for us, anxiety levels are high. You know, you want to come to work, but you can't because the schools aren't open. You don't have no place to put your kids yet. So there's some issues there that I would like to see addressed, and hopefully with Drew's comments, we will be addressing those soon. But I would still like to have that same amount of energy by the people that are on the ground in Hatteras. That means a facility coordinator, a man like Danny, our sitting commissioner on that control group. I don't dislike any of the mayors that are out there, but I don't have the chance to vote for them. But they're making decisions on our behalf. So are you, Mr. Chairman. So I would like to see that, even in the plan, there's even a section here where we'll reach out to realtors. I've talked to my counterparts in the vacation that they haven't heard from you, except if you talk to one on the very south end. And you may have stopped and seen her the other day.
Well, let me address that just, do you want me to?
Go ahead, but I'll address your point that I'm making decisions on behalf of Hatteras Island. You bet I am. You bet I am. And when you vote for a commissioner sitting up here, you don't vote by district. You vote for whoever runs. Just keep that in mind. So I work for the entire county, not just my district. And that's why Commissioner Couch represents Hatteras Island. He was in every single meeting, Mr. Head. He was on the phone constantly. He came to Manteo. He was out in the field talking to restaurant owners, talking to property management firms, talking to residents, as I was all day Saturday along with the county manager. So we didn't willy-nilly make any decisions. We made them as a group. And the rest of the mayors that are on that committee yielded to Mr. Couch in his recommendations.
Danny, do you have a vote on that committee?
Yes, he does.
He has a vote on that control group.
Well, we certainly took his thoughts into consideration.
Because
and
under this
followed
old
his
plan,
lead.
under the old plan, that person who sat in his seat had a vote not to give that information up.
No, he didn't.
Let me explain two things. One thing is, I've been with the county 12 years. The first hurricane that I served, this issue came up. We went down to all the villages in Hatteras Island and we had public meetings and we had substantially the same discussion then that you're having now. And one of the issues that we had then was how do we communicate better with the real estate community? We didn't have the ability to call every realtor in Dare County. And so what they did, the real estate community came to us and said, you all communicate through Beth. Beth will communicate with us. We now have a liaison and a conduit. So what we've done in every storm since then is we contact Beth Midgett. Beth Midgett is supposed to be surveying the real estate community down there, and she's given us the input about what's going on, where they are, what they're doing. And we did that this time, and she sent us survey data that she got from them this time, and we've done that in every storm in the last 12 years. So we have been communicating with them, but we're not calling every realtor. The second thing to understand is how the control group works. The control group is made up of the members of the community that the chairman just described to you. And they talk and they converse and they vote and they do, but at the end of the day, the control group has no control over the county or the towns. The control group cannot vote and require an evacuation of Nags Head. Only Nags Head can evacuate Nags Head. And only Nags Head can re-enter Nags Head. What the control group is designed to do is to get together, get all the officials together, to look at the county from 35,000 feet, not from individual entities alone, and make the best decisions we can for the whole county. And so while they do vote and while they do that to get consensus, they can't bind the county any more than the county can bind the towns. At the end of the day, the Dare County Board of Commissioners under the statute have that authority, and they have the authority to delegate that to the chairman, which they have done. And so the chairman, the mayors, and all those ultimately have the authority, and if Nags Head and Kitty Hawk and all them voted to do something that the chairman thought was detrimental to the county, then he wouldn't do that. But to get those people in a room, to get Danny in a room, to get everybody in a room and discuss all this stuff means you've got lots of people that know the goings-on of the county so that good decisions can be made, and one person's not making a decision based on faulty information. So that's how the system works. And so whether Danny had a vote or didn't have a vote, or whether you have somebody from else other than Danny on the control group to vote or doesn't vote, doesn't really make any difference at the end. The Board of Commissioners, with the delegated authority to the chairman, have the final say under the statute about how emergencies are handled in their county.
They done? Okay. So then the question really becomes, Bobby, since you're also the legal counsel for the commission, why is this plan that is published to your constituents not being followed?
Drew just told you. He just finished.
Emergency manager just explained that to you, Mr. Hill.
So for 5 years, this plan hasn't
than
been
5.
acted on?
Probably
Or more than
7.
5? 7?
Yeah,
Okay,
since
that's
Sandy
all,
was
that's all
here.
we need to know as the public.
Sure.
You
And
know.
it hasn't been followed in that, with that detail you're talking about. There is an emergency management plan that we follow, yes.
Then why isn't it published?
I don't know that, Will. I don't know the answer because we didn't publish it.
That's the confusion I'm having.
I understand.
I
Understand?
mean, because I'm reading this and how we used to do things and sat in it and watched it and how effective it was through Isabel, for an example.
Actually, the reason it
Actually,
was changed is because it wasn't.
Wasn't effective.
Oh, but you left it up there? Come on, Bobby.
I didn't know it was
This-
up there, so I
This,
can't
this is,
answer.
this is where we go to find the information,
Sure.
because I can't call each of you to see if you've read this thing. I'm pulling it off the website going,
But the implication that you have is somehow Hatteras Island didn't have any input and things were done to the detriment of
well,
Hatteras
because the
Island.
way
That's
it
not
used to
true.
be run is that we had those people in place that were communicating with
Well,
Mr.
and we
continually, but
communicated
we
with
don't see
every
that
one
in
of
the
them.
same place, because
But-
you don't have the boots on the ground,
But
because
we
you're
did.
not gonna step
We-
off in the crap to get it cleaned
We've
up.
talked with every one of those people that would have been talked to there to get the same information.
Well, and you weren't talking to the people that had to go back to work, Bobby.
Okay.
We had a voice there. We listened to everyone down there.
Well, I'm
We
sure if
made
you're
all the-
allowing Buxton, they'll be talking as well. So I
Yeah,
thank you for your
absolutely.
time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Elaine Hooper.
I'm ceding my time to someone from Buxton because I am extremely angry.
We don't get to see time. You're welcome to speak, but
Then I would like to give up my impulse.
sure. Next is Colleen Schreiber.
I'm waiting my time, thank you.
Okay. Next is Catherine, Findler? No Catherine Findler, okay. Next is Nancy Kozanovic. Next is Warren Martin.
Welcome, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners, I may have something a little bit different to suggest to you than what I've sat here and listened to. And I respectfully am going to ask each of you, on your own or with your help of Mr. Otten, to review Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, which gives you and me and every other elected official the right to do or support things that are necessary and proper for the benefit of the citizenry. In this particular case, I came this evening to support the resolution involving Dominion Power. Commissioner Tobin brought up the idea or mentioned the idea about the mainland, Mans Harbor, and elsewhere. I would suggest to you, without talking to Susan Flife or the people at the Dominion and elsewhere, but I firmly believe that there are enough telephone poles and lines intertwined around these areas that at Mr. Tobin's home, I'm Dominion Power, but I've got 2 more poles that are too close for me to take care of, but my men will take care of it or my women will take care of it while they're there, and then we'll switch it somewhere. And it did me a great deal of time. For the first time I've left in a storm since 1970 to see 5 electric trucks, bucket trucks, poles, everything else from the state of Ohio, inbound. And I'm sure that they stayed here and did their very best to support everyone that was here. You know, you get tired working on a pole or tired on this and that and the other, and you can't let fatigue overtake the health and the safety of those individuals that are here to help us. And it's my understanding from a gentleman some of you may or may not know by the name of Alan Flincham, or Slim Flincham, who was the first person that told me about this program a number of years ago. And if you go south of Salvo, you'll see a series of wooden poles that are still there that Mr. Flincham and his crew had the contract to repair for this county a long time ago. Now, I understand the work of the control group, et cetera. From time to time, I go to the firehouse in Rodanthe. And what do? I hand out ice. Mrs. Fladutovich comes and said, I need to have someone pull the pinning out from my house. It got flooded. The Baptist men of North Carolina have done that. The Methodist men and countless other people just willingly have come along and helped. And I must put in a word for all the fire chiefs everywhere here in the county, because I am aware that every day, whether it's 9 a.m., 5 o'clock, or whatever time, they communicate as a group. And whatever they, let's just to be arbitrary, what Rodanthe needs, Waves needs, and Salvo needs, goes to the mainland. And it's inbound on the next ferry, tractor trailer, or whatever. And those individuals, to me, and not taking anything away from anybody else, are kind of the heart and soul with their walkie-talkies and their communication. And there are a series of ham operators around, too, that deserve recognition and credit. And that being said, I thank you for your time, and I will also tell you I'm not running for or from anything. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
That's all I have on the sign-up. Anyone else like to speak at public comment tonight? Any other public comment this evening? Seeing no hands, go down to Buxton. Is there public comment in Buxton?
Yes, we do have speakers. Our first speaker is Tina Gartelman.
Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, I have lived here for 35 years. I have had 3 feet of water inside my house. Vacationers are being allowed back on the island too soon. Local workers are not being given time to get their homes fixed before abating all their damage to vacant vacation homes. It is not physically impossible to work from dusk to dawn on vacation homes and still have time and energy to repair and clean our own homes. Keep in mind that we also had a curfew. Local year-round residents are the backbone of the vacationer industry on Hatteras Island. Obviously, we choose to live on an island with limited year-round housing and seasonal threat of devastating hurricanes. But after a major weather event, we need time to repair our own housing site. Nearly all of us had water in our yards and some in our residence. Once the water recedes, we need time in our yards and homes for the unsanitary residue left by the receding oceans. Since we all have siphons, I don't like to even think about what else is in my yard and home. Within saying that also, I have also Friday, after the storm had hit and the water started receding, I had to wade to my house to start tearing out carpet. After tearing out my carpet, the next day, I had already had to start going and doing pools and spas and looking to see what damage was done for them. I also do construction work, which I've done for 20 years. Pools I have done for 10 years, which my bosses are the best bosses in the world. I have no complaints about doing anything for them. Like I had told my boss, if it was up to being just a pool and spa job, I would tell them to forget it. My life is more important. But instead, I had to go out there and work for them because I could not look my own bosses in the eyes and tell whether it was construction or my pools and spas that I could not help them. And that's pretty sad when I was not even allowed 48 hours to 72 hours to have the time to properly get what I needed out of my house with 3 feet of water in it. With saying that, I believe that people on this island that have been affected with whether in their homes or their yards should be allowed the proper time, with even it being in 48 hours, 70, or at least a week, to be able to properly get what they need done. Now you say that the DOT and the roads were safe for people to come back. I have had so many people come here and tell me on my time that they had to drive through water at 8 o'clock at night. A lot of them couldn't see well. That was not very safe when they could have been called in earlier than dark. Then I sat there and have also other people talking about the residents of the island. Yes, it's not good. I still not have water on my house. I still have walls I need to tore out. But I am still working for the realty companies doing pools and spas, which I don't think that's right when I had to have time that I got taken from me within the first 48, 72 hours from my own home that had residue inside. I had to tear carpet out. That's not right. Then on top of that, you talk about the safety of us. Where is there safety when you don't even give us the 48 hours or 72 hours to properly clean our yards? I've had children come and clean my yard. It was so bad they were throwing up. I had to tell the boy they were standing in septic water. That's what they were smelling. The poor kid was throwing up with no shoes on his feet. You talk about help. Yes, they have helped us very well. But how do you think mentally I felt when I had a 60-year-old man come with a bad back and help my boyfriend that has a bad back and a hernia, which both of them had to go to the doctors the next day? That's not right when I am physically able to be able to go and clean my own yard. And I have an elderly man that's older than me and more disabled than me. That made me cry so bad. Every single one of you on that committee should be ashamed of that. And you're proud to have people come down and volunteer. Maybe you should think that they need to come down and volunteer for the realty companies, because obviously it seems to you that they need to help more than us, since we're getting deprived of our time to do what's needed for our sanitary and well-being on this island. Then you sit there and you talk about the realty companies having these safe houses for people to come into. I have been into many of them. I have talked to many tourists. They have tarps on their roof flopping so loud they cannot sleep. I have seen tourists in houses with glass still in the frame, rigid, that the renters had locked the door, but still have another access out to that door with children in that house. How is that safe for the renters, I might ask? Then I've been in the houses also. Okay, I'm all. Okay, and then also I would like to know how come I was deprived of my time. I will be emailing everybody in the control group because I want to answer on why I was treated like this, and I will show pictures of everything that I just stated, because I do not think our well-being, our safety, nor the tourists has been put before money. And that's a shame when money is put before us on this island.
Our next speaker is Rich Donner.
Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Welcome,
Again,
Mr. Dunn.
thank you. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, again, I feel humbled as I speak here, as I didn't really lose anything during this storm. I spent the first 3 days drying all my stuff out, standing in sludge. It's funny you mentioned that you came down Saturday morning and viewed the island. I woke up Saturday morning still in ankle deep sludge, sewage, silt, dead fish, animals running around. So I appreciate it that you have at least one person there that is a member of Hatteras Island or a resident of Hatteras Island, but if I understand correctly, he's not actually a voting member. But then you have mayors all the way up and down the north end of the beaches. Seems like it's a little bit lopsided on your voting, while the rest of you are managing us from 35,000 feet, as I heard a little earlier. I will say this. You did mention some things. The emergency response was amazing. You guys are doing great jobs on that. All the help that came down, the volunteer help. Thank God for the Salvation Army. 72 hours after I woke up in sludge, I was called in to work because the tourists were coming. The decision was made that they're coming back, and I need to get houses ready. I worked for 3 days. I stopped cleaning my own house, and I worked for 3 days to get houses clean. Again, thank God for the Salvation Army, because that was the only place I was getting any food. We were eating out of mere survival. So when you have to cook dinner, it's just another chore in the day.
I was greeted on my last day by some tourists. They pulled up in Hatteras Village, by the way. Bicycles on the back, surfboards on top, paddle boards on top, ready to go. They popped up the top of the stairs, glad to see us. Wanted to know if we were there to cook them dinner. You say that I heard arguments about different reasons why we want to open the island early. People want to get back to work. You say 2 days makes a difference. I understand that. It is a very good argument. You have to make a very tough decision. Another argument was money lost. People on vacation saved all year. Don't want to hear that. The money was already spent. Their vacation was spent. They lost some fun. Sorry about that. Wasn't any fun for us. You do bring up a good point about getting back to work, and some of the people here, this is 2 days makes a big difference. But how many of those people are just like me? They were standing there in sewage for 3 days when their boss called them and said, hey, you got to get back to work. Because if you don't get back to work, I'm going to lose this contract and we're not going to get this anymore. And we're going to lose business.
3 days.
That's what happened. 3 days after I woke up in sludge, we went back to work. Guys, again, I feel humbled. I thank you for your time. And I wonder what's going to happen in the future. I certainly hope that maybe they'll look at not such a lopsided voting on what happens on the island. And maybe get down and speak to some more of the people, because I don't know anybody, not one person in this room or anybody that thought it was a popular decision to start opening the island on Tuesday. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rosa Alice Mayo.
I thought it was 5.
Hello.
Would you repeat your name? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
My name is Rosa Alice
Thank you.
Gray
Thank you.
Mayo. I live in Hatteras. I evacuated because I have a son with disabilities. We were told we could come back Saturday night. We were not driving at night, so we came back Sunday. We had been told there was some sand and water on the road. We were horrified when we hit the bathhouses in Frisco, heading to Hatteras. That was not a little bit of water, folks. That was a lot of water. You had cars speeding through that water, pushing water up underneath our vehicles. The Weather Channel says in 6 inches your car will float. Well, I didn't see any floating cars, but I did see a truck go up on the dune to get out of the water and ride the dune. There was no Park Service, no cops, nobody there to control what was happening. My van is for my son. He's 2 years old. That is a $55,000 vehicle, the cost of the van and the equipment in it. I have no way to wash the undercarriage of that because I was not going back out of Hatteras to go up to the car washes and go through that water again. So I think you did us a disservice with letting us have to put our cars through that deep water, and it was deep. The village market lost all of its frozen food and its meat. They got a truck in on Saturday. So the Salvation Army and the Red Cross were instrumental in people in our villages getting food because a lot of the gas tanks were also gone. And there's tons of stoves on the side of the road. I love my island. I love the people in this island, and I have witnessed many, many touching things. The volunteer groups, the CERT group that hasn't been mentioned tonight, has been instrumental in so many people's lives. Salvation Army and Red Cross, just the locals that have come from all of your towns to help us. We have been blessed, but you have to do a better job at making sure that people have safe passage. And then you open the road, that water is still there outside of Hatteras Village. One of the county officials several years ago, I asked him why you couldn't bring sewer trucks in to suck that water up. You know what he told me? Well, where will they dump it? I'm going to leave a blank. You dump it where you dump the rest of the. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gray.
Our next speaker is Linda Browning.
Ms. Browning, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. I was going to discuss the plan, the emergency operations plan, which I've learned from Drew. The plan that is online has not been followed for several years. So these are just impromptu remarks that I'd like to make, and that is in regards to the flow of information from Hatteras to EOC to you. Danny, I don't know who all you talked to gather the information for the main control group. But when Sandy Sanderson was here, and I believe who may have been the one who wrote this Dare County Emergency Operations Plan in 2007, there were several entities specified for membership in the EOC support group for Hatteras Island. Mr. Woodard, you did name some of them, but what I was surprised is that left off were the fire departments here on the island, the rescue squad, amateur radio, and a communications expert. These were all parts of the original support EOC for Hatteras Island. I don't know how the departments are up in your area, but they are integral threads in the tapestry of Hatteras Island life. Many of the operations are being staged from these fire departments. And these are the people who can tell you exactly what is going on the entire island, even in the uninhabited parts of the island. Danny, thank you for being here and being able to communicate some of the information to the main control group. But even the best of listeners and the brightest of minds cannot synthesize all of the information that could be gathered if the Hatteras Island control group could be permitted a conference call with the main control group so that all of the people who have accumulated details and information and can speak with authority could speak together. Since Drew Pearson is going to be revising the county's emergency operations plan, I would hope that he would reinsert membership of the fire departments, the rescue squad, amateur radio, and a communication specialist.
Ms. Browning, thank you. And you make some very good points. I just want to confirm that those emergency folks on Hatteras Island, our emergency EOC director spoke with those individuals daily and got reports and passed that on to the control group.
Chairman, I'd just comment that
Yeah,
our
please.
fire marshal was in constant contact with the volunteer fire departments.
Right. Step up.
As often as he could, as often was needed. He was in touch with each department, talking to them. The amateur radio network was up and running. The Outer Banks Repeater Association is an amazing group of volunteers that serves not just the EOC, but the entire community. They were engaged throughout the activation of the EOC. The Hatteras Island CERT is another, obviously a great group of people down on Hatteras Island. And I was in contact with Larry Ogden several times as he made his way back, and they sprung into action and got to work. And I can't say enough thanks for the efforts of those volunteers down on Hatteras Island that brought the information to us so that we can get it to you. And I think there's always room for improvement, and bringing some of the steps back in to make sure they're vibrant and everybody has it. That plan needs to be updated. I'm the first one to say that. It needs to be updated, and we're on it to get that done as quickly as we can to make sure it's a plan that is continuing to live into the future But plans need update cycles, and we're well overdue on this one, and we'll get it taken care of, sir.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to speak? Want to take your name before?
Do I need to do anything?
Just tell them your name.
Evening. I'm Lou Browning from Frisco. I've been involved with fire and rescue for a little over 20 years each. I'm retired from those services now. I was part of the control group for a number of years down here, and I know that it's complicated going up and down. The more information, the better. The more people in a room talking and playing ideas off of each other, the better outcomes you get. As far as a 35,000 foot view, I don't think that's quite high enough for your control group. And what I mean is that things have changed dramatically in the last 50 or 60 years. I think if you'll look back in the records, you'll find that Colonel Spivey, along with North Carolina Emergency Management, did a few tests of slosh charts and other things back in the late 80s and the 90s to look at what would happen if Dare County and the East Coast was hit by an Wednesday size winter storm. And it was quite a rude awakening to learn, for instance, on Hatteras, no one would even ask about Hatteras for a couple of weeks. Up in your neck of the woods, you wouldn't have power for 3 months. So my point is that these are difficult situations. No matter when they go perfect, there's chaos and they're difficult. And at some point, north of the bridge is going to be hit by a storm also. I don't think you've really had much since '62. And I don't think a lot of people remember that up there. Along with that, with the buildup along the coast of all of the United States, we have millions of people in Eastern Virginia now. We have lots of people in North Carolina coastal. When it hits the fan on a bad storm, you're gonna need all the people that you can get a hold of to help get this information so that you all can make better decisions. One last thing is the information flow. If you have a local group down here, it's kind of nice when you get together and talk and you're in a room, because you play off of each other, you hear each other, you're talking to local people, and I think you just get a better outcome. In any case, thanks for your time and good luck with the rewrite, Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Anybody else?
Evening, gentlemen. My name is Brett Barley. I reside here in Buxton. Just to start off, as far as emergency management goes and evacuations, I've always felt that the decisions and the times to evacuate visitors and residents seem pretty spot on. And for a long time, it's the reentry that's always been the issue. And that's not even coming from me, that's coming from our friends and family that run and work at all the businesses down here. And I saw it especially after Hurricane Matthew, when you guys opened the village of Hatteras, which was decimated, and are forcing people to go back to work who can't, who have just, been tearing apart their homes, and midway through that find out, oh, visitors are coming down tomorrow. Not even tomorrow evening, tomorrow midday. And part of that issue is when you guys acknowledge that to the public, when you're going to open to visitors, to residents, you can say it's about an 18-hour period, but when 12 of those hours are at night, that isn't enough time for people to get ready. When Wednesday came, people who had been tearing out floors, insulation, doing whatever to their businesses and homes, and who were, you know, felt that Frisco and Hatteras were probably going to stay closed off for another couple days, came home that afternoon, whooped, to find out that, oh, visitors are coming tomorrow at noon. That means that all of those people had to wake up the next morning and put work on the forefront instead of their own well-being and their own homes. Now, I don't know. I feel like the reentry for residents is pretty okay. I'm not necessarily going to make a comment on that. I don't know if you guys are listening.
We are.
Okay, well, they aren't. But anyway, there needs to be more time between letting residents back and letting visitors back. There was an issue because you listed off the whole control group. All of them reside on the north end of the bridge. And even the call to let visitors back to the northern end of the Outer Banks was a little off. Power wasn't restored, trees were still down, and then with the rain following, it flooded, and residents that were then allowed to come back to Hatteras the following day were then stuck in all of the traffic that was visitors trying to get to the northern beaches. You guys have to realize we have to go through up there to get home. And so when you make the call at 8:30 at night that residents can come back at noon tomorrow, no one's going to hop in their car 3, 4, 5, 6 hours away and drive through the night home. Maybe a select few. I know guys who woke up the next morning and went and bought supplies to bring down here and then got stuck in traffic with electric trucks trying to get down here to help as well, next to people just coming here on vacation. There needs to be more time allowed for visitors or residents of Hatteras to get back here before the visitors infiltrate and cause blockages, and it's just, you know, it's stressful for those people trying to return. The 18 hours that you guys give for people to come home or for visitors to come down, you need to give, if you're going to make it in the afternoon, say that they can't come back till the next evening, 24 hours. Maybe you make the call in the morning, 8 a.m. Okay, in 36 hours at noon, in a day and a half, visitors can come back, and give the people here time to get ready. Because the issue is, I was in and out of the firehouse, speaking with the DARE Social Services, speaking with the fire department, speaking with the people that were working at the CERT team and volunteering, and everyone was just praying and hoping that y'all wouldn't let people from back down to Frisco and Hatteras. Now, opening up Rodanthe is one thing. They didn't get hit. Buxton, Avon, you know, that's still sending people from Frisco and Hatteras up there to work. But the villages of Frisco and Hatteras, we're not ready. And to think that an entire control group that resides an hour away can take a little bit of word-of-mouth input and make a decision for hundreds of people is just off. We need our own control group. We need our own representatives at the very least. You guys, Mr. Chairman, you said you were down here Saturday morning assessing the damage. No one even has their thumb hardly on the effects of what have happened within 12 to 18 hours. On Monday morning, there was over 100 homes on the list that had been flooded. That doesn't include businesses, and that doesn't include the people who are too proud to put their names on the list, who are going to take care of their own. And every day that list grew as people got more stressed and needed help. And the numbers just kept going. This is Monday. That was on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday got even more. And these are people who are being forced back into work for people's vacations. And what's happening is someone's vacation, and they're, you know, which is a shame, someone's vacation is being put as a priority over the people here's well-being. Money is being placed above people's well-being and safety. You say that infrastructure, resources, and conditions are things that you assess. Well, one of the biggest resources for down here is the people itself. And that is not being taken into account. So that's all I got to say. Well, I got
Thank you for your comment.
Is no further comment from Buxton?
Don't cut this off because I want to ask some of the folks there. Drew, would you come up a moment? Right off the top of my head, I can't think of I can't think of the number of bulletins. What was it, a total of 14? Or how many bulletins total?
I think there were 16.
16. And I believe in every situation, we should check with your real estate firm before you came down. We drove that home quite a bit, I believe, in those bulletins.
Not in all 16 of them, but once
Yeah.
we started to get into reentry.
When we started to get into
We started to
reentry,
talk
right.
about that. There was probably about bulletin 9 or 10, I would
In
think.
addition, in those bulletins, we spoke about the driving conditions as well, to please be aware of the driving conditions. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
After reentry?
Yes.
Right. So my question is, I want to, if that information is not getting disseminated to Hatteras Island, then that concerns me, because those bulletins need to be widespread on the island. And I'm wondering if those of you that are here this evening from Buxton saw those bulletins, were aware of those bulletins, read those bulletins. If not, I'm concerned that they're not somehow receiving those. And I was wondering if anybody there would feel free to comment.
I will. I have saw some.
Don't you come up to the mic? We can't hear you all the way back there.
Sorry. I have seen some of the bulletins and some of the things, but you also have to take into concept that the realty companies aren't going to sit there and deny people to come, and you sit there and say, oh, a little bit of water, a little bit of judgment, call the realty companies and use their discretion. Let me ask you, what do you think their discretion's going to be? Oh, come on back. Who cares if it's flying all over the place? Who cares if you're drowning us? Who cares if our unsafety is unimportant? Who cares about anything else? Bring us that money, honey. That's what they care about, sir. Not us. Not about the bulletins. You say go get stuff clean. Go get things from other people. But you know what? We shouldn't have to have the help that's coming down here that's crippled and can't work to help us when we can do it ourselves. You're just not allowing us time to do that, sir. Yes, we are getting your bulletins. You need to get the idea. Your bulletins aren't meaning anything to anybody when it's not putting our safety first. And it's not, like I said, I saw broken glass in these rental houses with renters in it. That's not safety, sir. When I have to put my own stuff aside, that's not safety, sir. Yes, we are seeing the bulletins, but you need to see our views, not bulletins, sir.
One other little bit of feedback, Jason Collier from Frisco. The bulletins, just to kind of bring the conversation back and reframe it and follow up on Brett's point. I mean, I feel like the bulletin, the toothpaste is kind of already out of the tube by the time the bulletin's being issued and people are being directed to talk with a realty company. I'm standing up here now because I want to make sure the point isn't lost. I think the strongest point made tonight was made by Brett, and that is that the group down here needs a seat, or needs to feel they've got a seat on that committee that's making the decision. It's there's this sense with everyone I've spoken with that, again, the decisions are being made way up the beach. It sounds like some conversations were going on, but if anybody was really having conversations with the people that were in the heat of the battle, those roads wouldn't have been open to send people back. So as you're rewriting the process, as you're re-implementing your, whatever the booklet is, I'm forgetting the acronyms, but as that's being redone, I guess what everybody here is asking is, could a couple prominent people from the community down here have a seat at that table and be the ones that are polling the group and helping make the decision for when the gates are going to be opened back up? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Commissioner.
Hold on just a minute, and I'll recognize you if you don't mind. Brent,
Yes.
All right,
Um,
lay it on us, but you got a couple of minutes now. I ain't,
No, so I was glued to each bulletin every time that came out. Um,
by the way, we issued those bulletins immediately within 45 minutes after those control group meetings were held.
I understand the issue is the time that people are allowed back when they're announced is just not enough time. Because especially in this situation specifically, because Ocracoke was decimated, our manpower was going down there. And we didn't have the manpower here to get things put back together in time like normal. And so when you guys are issuing those bulletins in the evening and allowing visitors back at noon, there's not enough time for people to plan to come, you know what, all right, tomorrow
Let
I'm
me
gonna
stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. And let me ask you, how much time did you need? Tell me how much time you needed.
Well, I'm not in a position to
Tell
say
me how
that.
much time you needed to get back.
I would say 36. If you
36
give
days?
no,
Hours?
come on, hours. If
There
you
was
can get
5 days. There was 5 days before the visitors were allowed back. There were 5
sir,
days.
I don't believe you're hearing me in the fact that at 5:30 p.m. or 6 p.m. when people find out visitors are coming back at noon tomorrow, that is not enough time. People have been dedicating days and their whole days for 3, 4, 5 days to helping people elsewhere. Giving them the morning to get their stuff together to then facilitate businesses opening isn't enough time. Give them a day. Give them a day to just wake up the next morning, breathe, and think about what they need to accomplish that day to be able to, serve the people coming the following morning. You can't just wake up the next morning after having given all of your effort to other people in need that day, and wake up the next morning and you got 2 hours to get your stuff together before you go to work to serve, the visitors. It's putting a priority in the people's vacations over the people's well-being here. And like I said, this situation was specific because of how decimated Ocracoke was and because of how many people were going there to help because they need it. And here we were shorthanded. And to then open the island, having that roadblock in Buxton made sense, but then opening it up the next day did not. That was too soon.
All right, we'll certainly take your, listen, we've all taken notes this evening, and we certainly will share that with the control group.
And that's the boots on the ground information we're talking about, that if anybody was getting that in real time at that level, it would have made sense. It couldn't have made sense to have opened the roads up and sent everybody back.
And I have one more thing to say, sir. You asked how much time. It took me a week to prep my house, put everything up 4 feet in my house to be able to get ready for that storm to come in. I had to put everything down, take everything out, clean up my house. It's been over a week, sir, and I still don't have water in my house. You tell me how long I should have, sir.
Ma'am, listen,
week
ma'am,
has not
I'm
been
not
long
here to
enough.
argue with you. I'm
I am
here
not
to
arguing
listen to
with
what you
but
have
a
to
week
say.
has
I'm
not
not
been long
arguing
enough
with you.
for
I'm
me.
here to listen to what you have to say.
But
And I
a
empathize with you with
has not
water
been a
because I've been flooded twice myself in the last 5 years. I've had water in my home twice in the last 5 years. So I fully understand what you're saying. This gentleman here in the middle has something to say.
Sir, again, I applaud you on the fact that you have to make the tough decisions. And you asked the question just a minute ago on how much time we needed. There was a couple of important points made. And you asked the question about did we receive the bulletins? It was kind of like the Hunger Games. We got that bulletin around, 5 in the evening or something, telling us that everybody was coming back the next day at noon.
We issued them
So that was part
45
of the
minutes.
bulletin. It wasn't a whole lot of time after we got the bulletin to be ready. We just needed more time. There's a cycle here. And every time you make the decision, you got to be different. But there's a Saturday to Saturday cycle for rentals and things like that. Maybe we could have had, instead of bringing back people Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe we could have brought them back Thursday and Friday. And then most people would have skipped it and just came Saturday anyway. Would have gave us more time.
I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
But Commissioner Tobin, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just wanted to make sure that Brett's point was well taken. That issue was made at Wednesday at 5:34 PM, that they could return to Hatteras Village on Thursday at noon. And I think what Brett was saying is that he would have rather have had that at Friday at noon, which would have given.
Yeah,
them-
that's what I'm understanding.
Just to reiterate, make sure everybody's
Yeah.
clear on that.
Ms. Gray, did you have something else?
Mayo is the last name, Gray's the maiden name.
Oh, okay. I
Anyway.
apologize. Yeah.
Anyway, the Red Cross was set up in Hatteras Village. They have left Hatteras Village. I have been taking meals to some sick and shut-in people in Hatteras Village. I had to go to Frisco yesterday to the Salvation Army truck and get those meals. The Red Cross man told me once the island was open for business and the businesses were open, there was no need for them to stay. That is not true. There's people that don't have gas to their homes. There's people that don't have stoves in their homes. And we have now lost a food truck. That's all I wanted you to think about.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here this evening, sharing your thoughts with us.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Woodard, can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
I spoke with you the day before the storm down at Radio Hatteras. I helped down there.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, you made a point on the bulletins, or that the wording was on every bulletin that people should check with the realty company before it comes out. All right. I got every one of those bulletins. I read every one of those bulletins. I think I broadcast every one of those bulletins on Radio Hatteras. But I'm getting that information 18 hours before it matters. We pushed down here to get the word out, but we're not getting the word to people in Pennsylvania. We're not getting the people in Virginia. So you may put it on that bulletin, but the bottom line is there's got to be time for the communication to get out before people even, they're coming down here on vacation. They're not thinking about anything but getting the car loaded and getting down here. And that little bit of time from that evening till the next day at noon is not time for them to get that communication.
That's a point well taken. But I mean, any reasonable person would pick up the phone and call their rental company and ask if that property is available.
Mr. Woodard, you guys have vacationers up there like we do. Are they reasonable people?
Well, you make a very clear point there, that's for sure. Absolutely.
They are, yes.
Most of the time.
They may not be reasonable.
They
are, yes.
that's for sure. As the vice chair said, they may not be reasonable, but they are our guests. But listen, folks, that's why we have these public comments, and that's why we have these sessions. We learn from every single session. And I said, if you listen to my comments, I spent 15 minutes going over, the process. We're not perfect. We don't claim to be perfect. We make decisions based on the information that we have. And I've got to yield to Commissioner Couch. Commissioner Couch, validate the fact that we had every single meeting, you were on the phone or either in the meeting, and we were getting information from you. Did we not get that?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. But we'll learn from these, and God bless you folks down there. We don't wish any hardship on any of you, but we will take every effort we can to improve on what we do when we have a situation like this. And I respect every one of your comments, and I take them constructively, and we will work to do a better job. You took away the video, you took away the screen from Hatteras. Are they still on? Okay. At this time, there's a young lady in our audience here in Manteo that would like to speak, and I'd like to hear her comments.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to echo what was just said about needing time to disseminate the information from those bulletins. telling people in these bulletins that are mostly locally circulated does little to get the information to our vacationers from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, who are just focused on having a good time. And I am so happy to have them. We do need their business. We do need them back. We are happy to see them. But the simple truth is, by the time the island opened, restaurants still hadn't gotten their food shipments. The Village Red and White finally got their grocery and meat section open the other day. The road was open before that happened. Danny, I am not sure where you were getting your information, but I do apologize, you were clearly misinformed. So I don't know who people are talking to on the ground in Hatteras, but every single person I have spoken to in Hatteras and in Frisco and the southern end of Buxton said, we are not ready. So I don't know who is telling people that they are, but they are wrong, from the real estate companies to the restaurants to the shops. And I'd also like to address something you said earlier about emergency services being up and running. All of our fire departments on Hatteras Island are volunteer run. Many of these volunteers had their homes damaged, had their vehicles damaged. And if they didn't, and even if they did, they were at the forefront of the recovery. They're out mucking out people's homes. Allowing vacationers back in, allowing more people on the island, our emergency services are not ready for it. Our emergency services are busy trying to get people's lives back together. There's simply no way that we are working to par when our firefighters are working 7 days a week, their current jobs, recovery, in addition to being on call 24/7. There is simply no way. So in addition to the fire departments now being the main hub, I was down at Frisco Fire Department today. It is chaos on Highway 12. Can we get a deputy stationed there? Is there enough emergency funding for an additional deputy to help direct traffic there, because somebody is going to get hit crossing that highway? Our emergency services are not ready. We're not ready, I should say, on the south end of Hatteras Island. But as always, we have picked ourselves up and we're doing what we can. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
What was
Thank
your
you.
name, please?
What was your name, ma'am?
I apologize. My name is Elaine Hooper. I live in Salvo.
Thank you, Ms. Hooper.
Any other public comment? With that, Mr. Chairman, I close the public comment.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
That brings us to item 6. This is a public hearing on the essential housing amendments. Donna Creek will make that presentation. At this public hearing, the rules for public comment that we described earlier will also apply. I don't have a sign up for that, so if you'd like to speak to that issue, raise your hand and I'll recognize you when I do come to the podium. Donna, would you just get up briefly and introduce what this is about?
Good evening, Donna.
This is a public hearing, as Mr. Outen said, for 4 additional amendments to the zoning ordinance to continue our efforts to get some housing, some essential housing amendments in our zoning ordinance. The one is to extend the cluster home developments into 8 other districts that are your more traditional single-family districts. The second alternative is the educational housing alternative that would allow regulations to address housing that is directed at students associated with Dare County CSI, College of the Albemarle, Dare County Board of Education. The third alternative is the conditional use subdivision alternative, which would allow a reduction in the lot size to 12,500 square feet in exchange for a dwelling size limitation of 1,200 square feet that has a minimum parcel size of 3 acres. That would be added to 28 districts. And then the last alternative is the workforce housing alternative, which would add an accessory dwelling units or units, more than one, in conjunction with a commercial business, and that would be added to the commercial districts that we have in place in unincorporated Dare County. And I'll sit down if we have any speakers, and then I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay.
That said, I'd open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak to that issue? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and where you're from.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Colleen Shriver, and I live in unincorporated Dare Manteo. And Once again, I've addressed you recently with regard to subdivisions and housing and density, and my biggest concern is we don't have central sewer, but we're adding density. We use density. We tried to get away from density by using septic systems. We do not have a good stormwater management program, and now we're putting more density. So again, I'm all for trying to find better housing, more housing, inventory. I applaud you for the work that's being done. I was at the work group this morning. I was very pleased at what I heard and what I saw and the interaction. But I think that we have some huge issues that I'm concerned are not being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rymer.
Any other public comment on this issue? Any public comment in Buxton on this issue?
No comment from Buxton.
With that, Mr. Chairman, it's before the board.
Okay, I'll open the floor for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, then what's the pleasure of the board?
I move that the entire package of housing amendments be adopted as recommended by the planning board. A finding of consistency included with the agenda item is adopted as part of this action.
There's a motion on the floor by the vice chairman to adopt the motion to adopt the entire package of amendments. Is there a second?
I'll second. Yep, I'll second it as well.
There's a second by Commissioner Couch and Tobin. Floor is open for further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that one of the comments I heard today, and I heard it very well from one young lady in the meeting we had, was people have been talking about this for a long, long time, and nobody's done anything about it. And so I think that this board being proactive and trying to do whatever we can do to at least get this into a conversation open and allow some of the zoning changes to have these things happen is a big step in the way we need to go. I'm fully behind it 100%.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Bateman. Anyone else? Commissioner?
I just had a clarification question for Donna. The minimum lot size on item number 1 was increased to 30,000 square feet?
Yes, sir. That's just in those districts that are the single-family districts. In the other districts, it's still at 20,000 square
Right,
feet.
and the 30% lot coverage would imply 9,000 square feet lot coverage, 30% of the
30% applies, yes, sir. That's not changed.
And the dwelling size is 1,200 feet maximum
1,200 square feet of heated space.
heated space.
Yes, sir.
Lot coverage would include heated space, driveways, sidewalks,
Impervious surfaces.
impervious surface. So what I was trying to do, I might as well get to the point, is compute how many, and I'm thinking 4 or 5 on a
The
lot
illustration
4
that we
maybe?
had last month, I think it had 4 houses on it.
4.
And that's, yeah.
That's what I was trying to do,
Yes.
mental math here. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further comments? Commissioner Couch?
Just that this is, we've been a long time in the making on this. It's not perfect. We have a very capable staff and who can deal with anything we have to modify going forward. It's a foundational plan. And I think we have the capacity to deal with any issues we have, like Ms. Shriver said, going forward. But this is the foundation here for what we've been trying to do for a long time. I think we're ready.
Thank you, Commissioner Couch. Anyone else? But no further discussion. Those in favor of the motion then signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Chairman, item 7 is a conditional use amendment for the Midgett group development. And Donna, if you please make that presentation.
Yes, sir. As this is a quasi judicial, I'm going to ask the applicants to come up. Whoever's going to be speaking tonight, you guys all need to come up and get sworn in. I would have you come up because Mr. Allen's going to ask you some questions and you need to be sworn in.
You all solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony and evidence that you present in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. God.
Yes. Sit tight, guys. This is an amendment to a conditional use permit that was approved back in 2017 for 1145 Collington Road. At that time, it was a group development of 3 structures. One was a home with a hair salon in it, and the 2 other structures were going to be used in a commercial capacity. To date, the home with the beauty shop has been constructed, and the one structure that has 4 individual units has been constructed. It has not been occupied. It has been issued a CO, but there are no occupants in there. Since that construction of that second unit, Mr. Jonathan Midgett, who was the previous owner of the property, has sold the property to the New Way Community Church, and they are hoping to put their church in that structure that is there. Pastor Roga is here. The project engineer is here. Churches are permitted use in the commercial services district, which is the zoning that applies on the property. But since there was a previously issued conditional use permit, we have to amend that CUP. The site plan that's in your packet shows the additional parking that will be added. It also shows that that parking area will be where the 3rd building that was originally approved has been deleted from the site plan. The church is proposed to have 120 seats. The zoning ordinance bases the parking for churches on 120 seats. We've had numerous meetings with the pastor of the church, and we have advised them that if he has an overflow issue with the parking, or that he can't park on Collington Road, he can't park on the adjoining properties, that if it becomes an issue and he needs more parking, he will need to make arrangements to accommodate that parking. He will also have to go under a building design review for the building. It's a different occupancy under the building and the fire codes, and he's working with the fire marshal and the building inspector to have that taken care of. As part of this review of the amendment, we did notify the adjoining property owner, and she contacted us after the planning board had reviewed it. The CS district, as a buffer, requires a 6-foot wooden fence. That fence is already in place. That is the requirement of the zoning ordinance. The adjoining property owner has requested that vegetation be added to that fence. The planning board did not receive her comments because she responded an email to us after the planning board met, but we assured her that we would include that as part of our conversation tonight. The draft conditional amendment is in the packet that has been provided to the project engineer and the pastor, and they are here, as I said, and I will stop right there and take any questions that you may have or continue our discussion.
Thank you, Donna. Any questions from the board? County Manager, you get them, you
Sure.
ready?
Yes, sir. I need one of the applicants who's sworn.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Victor White with Landmark Engineering and Environmental. I'm the project engineer.
And who's the client? Your client here as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pastor Roga.
Pastor, if you'd come up as well, please. Sure. This is what they call a quasi-judicial hearing, and the board is supposed to have findings of fact in order to make these decisions, and so I'm trying to create a record so they can do that. First question I'd have for you, do you agree and accept that the file and all the information that you presented to the county and that's been presented to the board is factual and correct and may be admitted into evidence?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. The second is, do you agree with all of the facts as outlined by Ms. Creef here tonight?
Yes.
Yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then finally, do you all agree with the terms and conditions that are in the proposed CUP for the board?
Yes. The only question I had was about the vegetative buffer, if that pleases the board to include that. Is it along the fence? Is it going to be on which side of the fence? I understand it was for noise, so just trying to get an idea of what's.
With clarification as to where it goes, do you agree with the terms and the conditions?
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay. Then that's all that I have. Okay. And you agree as well? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the vegetative buffer, my idea would be that if the board concurs with the concerns of the adjoining property owner that the vegetation will help with the noise inside, that it would be placed inside the fence, and that we would have shrubbery of some type, probably 5 foot on center, which is a typical vegetative buffer. It would run the length of the property there, and it would go on the inside of the fence so that it could be easily maintained. And as Pastor Roga has acknowledged, he's in agreement with that.
Does the CUP need to be amended?
I would need to amend that condition to put in there that the vegetative buffer would need to be installed on the inside of the fence, 5 foot on centers, and then we would have that signed by the chairman and the applicant.
Just for, that would be added to item 5?
Item 5, yes, sir. There would be language in there indicating that the vegetative buffer would be installed inside the fence and be the responsibility for the applicant to maintain.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
With amendments.
Yes, sir, with the amendments. I want to thank Pastor Roga for his work in the community as well.
Thank you,
With this
Commissioner
opportunity.
Couch. It's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Couch. I believe Commissioner Ross seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Chairman, item 9 is a independent consultant agreement with regard to the College of the Albemarle project. Keenan Briggs is a person who's held multiple roles in the community college system throughout the state and at state level for a number of years, and is recognized as one of the experts in North Carolina on community colleges. We've asked him, and he's agreed, to serve as a consultant to Dare County to help us as we plan for the future of our Dare County campus, and to make sure that we build what the future holds as best we can determine that, and we build to meet the needs of the community college system as best we can determine that as well. So he's a great resource. We've talked with him before. He was actually the acting dean at College of the Albemarle at the inception of this project many years ago before we got this deep in it. And so he's very familiar with what the plan is. He was involved in the early programming as well. And so he's a wonderful resource that we have, and he's agreed to work for us. In your packet is a contract with him. It's a very simple contract. It's basically, he's agreed to help us as a consultant at a cost of $65 an hour for his time. And so with that said, we'd be asking you to approve that agreement so that we can get him on board.
Bob, he would be working for us, for the county.
He is working for us, but working for us means he's working for the COA system as well. I mean, what's good for us is good for them, and what's good for them is good for us. And so we're going to be looking at this holistically. But he is working for us, and we are paying.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve the contract.
Second.
Mr. Briggs.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by the vice chairman. I believe it's seconded by Commissioner Couch. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is your consent agenda.
Yes, sir.
On the consent agenda, you have the approval of the minutes, the tax collector's report, North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission grant award, and the road request for the Dogwood West Manteo subdivision.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Bateman. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by the vice chairman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. That brings us to item 11 and county manager.
All right. I have two things. Well, one thing, and then Dave has one. We have an MOU that you have before you between us and the school system. And the MOU basically says that since we're responsible for all the capital needs of the schools and those kind of things, is we're covering the cost of repair to the Hatteras school, and that any of the reimbursements that they get from insurance or FEMA or whomever, then they reimburse us for those repairs as they come in. And so that's the understanding we have with the school system, and that document memorializes that understanding.
And, so you know, Cheryl left this at your seats. The other one. Starts in upper left. Okay. This is what the school system provided North Carolina Emergency Management and FEMA this morning at the preliminary damage assessment. And ignore the first few lines, category A debris, that is up to them to file and be reimbursed for. Category E are public buildings and contents, and this is the list of their estimate. The real reason for the interlocal agreement is really cash flow. Everything to the school system is going to be an insurance reimbursement or a FEMA reimbursement, and in order to provide the cash flow until those reimbursements happen, they need us to do that. The interlocal really says that we have the ability to budget for school capital projects, as we do anyway, but it's to grab those reimbursements when the school system receives them. You also have the last page is a capital project ordinance for that list, showing that the source of funds will be the insurance and FEMA reimbursements that go to the school system because they file for those reimbursements. But as we pay the invoices for these repairs, once they get those reimbursements, they'll come to the county.
So you have two things to do in that. One is to approve the MOU, and two is to approve the capital ordinance.
Right. Dave, did they bring in a third-party professional to do these estimates, or are these their own estimates?
I think both. Down at the bottom, there's a industrial hygienist, and they've had an engineer working. That's part of those engineer fees. So I know the very first item, the gym roof, was approved by their insurance company to be an emergency repair, so that's not a formal bid process. But everything else is going to have to be estimated, spec'd, and bid. But there's been an engineer on ground and has talked with. He actually directly talked to Norma Houston with the School of Government and Emergency Management in looking at what dictated as far as bidding and procurement an emergency and what was not.
Gotcha. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure they had a professional involved in that. So.
Does their insurance pay all of this? They had to have any kind of deductible or anything?
There's one event, $5,000 deductible, and that should be covered by FEMA. FEMA will cover your deductibles.
Gotcha.
Any other questions of Dave? So what's the pleasure of the board on this item?
Motion to approve the memorandum of agreement.
Second.
Do you need those separately, Bobby?
You could say, and the capital project ordinance.
And the capital project.
Okay.
Second that one too.
Thank you. As a motion on the floor by Commissioner Tobin, and it's seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further questions? Hearing none, then those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And then Dave, I think, has one more thing.
Yes. The other item that Cheryl left at your place is first page is a county budget amendment. We're asking you to approve this budget amendment. This is based on our estimates of county costs. The second page attached to that is what we turned in to North Carolina Emergency Management and FEMA this morning. The last page is our debris estimate, which was prepared by our debris monitoring company. 45,000 cubic yards of vegetative debris and 16,800 cubic yards of C&D. And at our current contract price, it'll be right at $1,400,000. We also had, and they're listed on the second page, but $312,000 estimated damage to county buildings and vehicles. Most of that's actually one ambulance that was at the, I believe, the Hatteras Village Fire Department, and was flooded completely. These are all estimates, and it will change. And it assumes that we will be declared for a FEMA disaster declaration, which has not happened yet. And we'll be back to update it as we go and find out more.
I saw
They-
that Senators Tillis and Burr had written a letter urging the immediate adoption of Governor Cooper's recommended for declaration of emergency, so I'm confident, hopeful that that will take place quickly.
I know FEMA was here today, you mentioned, did they give you any kind of indication on when they may approve the debris pickup?
No, sir. The field staff know. Joe Stanton at North Carolina Emergency Management, we talked this morning, and he was hopeful it'd be midweek this week. But again, he doesn't know either, really.
Right. Because we're at Liberty waiting on them, aren't we?
No.
Well, I knew we were going into Collington and Martins Point because we won't get reimbursed there anyway, but.
Our decision to pick up debris isn't based on whether we get FEMA reimbursement. We're going to pick it up. What we've done is we've started in Collington and Martins Point because we know that they're done with all their cleanup and it's all out. You heard tonight they're not finished mucking out and cleaning out down south, so we're waiting to evaluate what the final cubic yards are going to be down there to decide whether we can do it in-house or whether we have to activate the contractor. That's a decision we'll have to make, whether we get FEMA reimbursement or not, once we know what's going to be involved. It'll take us the rest of this week and some of next week probably to do inside the gated communities that we always have to do. And by then, hopefully everything will be done down south that needs to be done so that we can make that decision whether to get the contractor in or not, so.
And I made that assumption for this budget action because with storms, the budget part's really difficult.
Right.
Because we want to be ready to go and not wait until your next meeting, so.
Okay, sounds good. We need a motion on the budget amendment, right? Correct? Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve the budget amendment.
There's a motion on the floor by the vice chairman to approve the budget amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Manager. That brings us to Commissioner's business, and I'd like to ask the Vice Chair if he would kick it off this evening.
Mr. Chairman, on Wednesday afternoon, I received a call from one of our commercial fishermen here, Mr. Troy Outland, who is a pound netter. And this was with regard to the storm, Hurricane Dorian, putting the guys that are setting nets, pound nets, way behind in terms of getting ready for the 4-week season that the Marine Fisheries Commission has so graciously given our fishermen here. In that discussion, it became apparent that due to the loss of poles that resulted from the hurricane, as well as just the unsafe conditions for them to try to even be out on the water during part of this time due to weather conditions, that it was going to put the folks in the northern region behind with regard to getting their sets ready for the flounder season. They're unable to, they being the Marine Fisheries Commission chair, is unable to start the season later, but they can extend it a week. So what we have is a resolution that is requesting Division of Marine Fisheries to add one additional week to the 2019 northern flounder fishing season to make up for the lost time and to give these guys a little bit more time to get their sets prepared for this abbreviated season. One of the things that's pointed out in that discussion is virtually all, if not all, of the guys fishing pound nets in this region have cut their sets back anywhere from 1/2 to 1/3 of the total number of sets that they normally do. And these reasons are economical. Poles for pound nets cost $15 a piece now. And if you've ever been by a pound net, there's a lot of them. And in addition, the copper, a 55-gallon drum of copper that they have to dip the nets in prior to the sets is like $2,300 a barrel. So from just purely economic standpoint, and the time that they have to fish, it didn't make it feasible to try to put out, in some cases, 9 sets, which is a normal set. In other cases, folks have cut back from 4 sets to 2 sets and so on. But anywhere from a half to down to as few as 1/3 of the sets are being put out, which in and of itself is going to make the reduction, the catch reduction that they're targeting come about irrespective of anything else. So, Bobby, if you would read this resolution, I would appreciate it. There is a typo in there on the next to the last whereas, but we can fix that. We can fix that later.
Okay. This is a resolution requesting the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries add one additional week to the 2019 northern flounder fishing season. Whereas commercial fishing is a vital part of Dare County's economy, and fall flounder fishing is a significant part of many of Dare County's commercial fishermen's livelihood. And whereas recent rules were adopted by the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries, severely curtailing flounder fishing to the period between September 15th, 2019 to October 13th, 2019. And whereas flounder fishermen must begin preparing their equipment and installing their net poles weeks before the beginning of flounder season. And whereas Hurricane Dorian and weather conditions just before and just after Hurricane Dorian delayed the preparation of equipment and prevented flounder fishermen from safely being on the water installing net stakes. And whereas Hurricane Dorian damaged or destroyed many of the net stakes that had previously been set. And whereas storm-related delays in preparation, the damage and destruction of previously set net stakes, and the time required to procure and set new net stakes will prevent flounder fishermen from fishing for at least 1 week after the inception of the flounder fishing season on September 15th, 2019. And whereas because the flounder fishing season has already been significantly curtailed by rule, it is not economical for northern flounder fishermen to set as many nets as in previous years, cutting the number of sets to be used in the northern area by 1/2 to 1/3 of the permitted number. And whereas because Hurricane Dorian-related delays prevented or delayed flounder fishermen in the northern area from preparing their equipment, setting their net stakes, and being ready to fish on September 15th, as expected by the Division of Marine Fisheries when recent rules were made, and because North Carolina flounder fishermen for economic reasons will be setting 1/2 to 1/3 as many nets as contemplated by the Division of Marine Fisheries when the rules were made, the Division of Marine Fisheries could and should grant a 1-week extension of the northern flounder season to October 20th, 2019, with no resultant negative impacts to the Division of Marine Fisheries' desired goals. Now therefore, the Dare County Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the commercial fishermen of Dare County, hereby request the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries extend the end of the northern flounder fishing season by 1 week to the 20th day of October 2019, this the 16th day of September 2019.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second it.
Motion on the floor by the vice chairman, seconded by Commissioner Tobin. Further discussion?
I will say that, I know that, I think Troy probably talked to, Commissioner Tobin as well. Jim,
Yeah.
you're well versed in this, if you want to add something
Yeah,
to it.
Troy is actually the person who purchased my set of nets. And I conversed, after Troy talked to me, I called up the Director of Marine Fisheries, and I had about a half an hour conversation with him. And the conversation went real well. He understood the situation that we were in. And he did say that he did have proclamation power, which he did not have in the past. So with proclamation power, he does have the ability to extend this without taking it to the commission. He wouldn't give any positive or negative way he was gonna rule on it. But he did allude to, let's see, and what the landings are, and if the landings are down, that he would consider extending it for a week, but at least it wasn't a no. And he was very, very nice and very pleasant to talk with and work with.
Well, I tell you, if landings are not down, it's gonna be a shocker, because with them fishing half to a third, as many as they had before, that's gonna tell you there's a whole lot more flounder out there than they think there is.
Yeah.
So he's waiting till the first week to see what the landings are before he
He's
makes.
probably gonna wait to rule on this a couple weeks into the season to see how the landings go.
Gotcha. Good.
Thank you,
Any
Jim.
any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
One last thing, Mr. Vice Chairman, you said there was a typo in.
Typo in-
one of the.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Okay.
We'll fix it. It's not a big deal.
It's one-handed typing over the weekend, I apologize.
You did pretty good, Ray.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's not bad.
Come
That's
on,
all I
man.
have.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Commissioner Bailey?
Sir, so I was just gonna make a comment. At Sugar Creek, we did this Alzheimer's and dementia training. I might have mentioned it one time before, but we had an instance that it really was beneficial. We had someone that got lost in the restaurant.
Oh, wow.
And the waitresses handled it beautifully. She was trained, to calm the young lady down, and she walked her throughout the restaurant until she found her family. But the thing that I did not understand is the lady got very, very agitated and almost frightful. And it kind of, it humbled me. And I said, I was so glad that the girl that came across her had been trained in that, and we had all been trained in that. So it's very beneficial. Everybody out there in TV land, if you haven't taken the course, it takes like about an hour. They come right to your restaurant or to your place of business and go through the whole process. Give you a little sticker to put on the wall there, dementia friendly. So it's very beneficial. The other thing I was going to tell you, thoughts and prayers out to the folks in Hatteras and anywhere that got flooded, the Bahamas. Ocracoke got completely trashed, and I went to Hatteras to go to Ocracoke, went through Hatteras and stuff on the side of the streets, and it's just, it's bad down there. And it brings me to the next thing, and the control group, I can just tell y'all, you guys do a great job. We can't please everybody. And this is one of those things where you do the best you can, and you guys have done an outstanding job. Danny, you're the eyes and ears down there, and you've got your heart into it. You speak to everybody you possibly can. There's some things possibly we can do better, and we will do things better. I'm just glad I'm not on that group. Because, that's a tough job. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Couch?
Yes, sir. I'll have a couple of comments in regard to that, but first, you have before you a resolution on adding a couple of seats to the to the mackerel and cobia advisory panel. I just want to preface this resolution. I attended the meeting on Thursday, the 12th, down there. There's a number of fishermen in there. Actually had representation from this end of the beach. A couple of guys from Wanchese, a guy from Virginia as well. And we stand by our commercial fishermen, and we appreciate, they are us and we are them. It's the vocation that essentially built this county, and there's a lot of smart guys in the room there. You know, you might not have, having chosen a blue-collar profession like that, I was just really impressed with the amount of common sense that was in the room. And they discussed all the political implications. Fishing over the past few years has gotten political on us, and that's an unfortunate thing. But listening to them speak in the room about this, about the fact that this was brought on us here with the Spanish mackerel issues here very suddenly, puts us at a real disadvantage. And they talked about not trying to take anything away from anyone else, not the Floridas, not the Gulf Coast, but to actually make it equitable. And that was the overriding takeaway that I had, and there was the fact that this resolution that is in front of you was actually crafted over a couple of days there with people who had input. And I'm hoping that this is something that while they're having their South Atlantic Marine Fisheries meetings down in Charleston right now, that we submit this resolution to them and in hopes that we can add a couple of seats here and also move the Spanish assessment up. They've got it scheduled in 2022, which is going to be a huge hardship on our guys. So we're asking that they actually move this up sooner, 2020, and schedule this update in 2020. But I stand behind what is done here. I know in sending this out that a lot of the guys on the board feel the same way. We support our commercial fishermen, and this is yet another example for us to rally behind our guys. And I'm hoping we'll accept it. Bobby, if you would, sir.
Sure. This is a resolution to add 2 North Carolina commercial fishermen seats to the Mackerel Cobia Advisory Panel. Whereas the commercial Spanish mackerel fishery in North Carolina was closed on August 24th, 2019, prior to the traditional September peak of landings in the state, despite scientific data showing that the stock is not overfished and that overfishing is not occurring. And whereas an inequitable quota allocation system imposes a greater regulatory burden on North Carolina commercial fishermen than fishermen in other states. And whereas there's no evidence that North Carolina commercial fishermen will not bear that inequitable regulatory burden in future years. And whereas the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council has no North Carolina commercial fishermen on its mackerel cobia advisory panel, despite North Carolina ranking second in commercial Spanish mackerel fishery landings from the Atlantic Ocean. And whereas an inequitable regulatory burden was not placed on North Carolina commercial Spanish mackerel fishermen until 2016, when the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council implemented a quota zone distribution system that disadvantaged North Carolina fishermen. And whereas the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council does not plan to update the Spanish mackerel stock assessment until 2022, postponing any regulatory relief for North Carolina commercial fishermen until 2024 or later. Whereas the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council should allocate the commercial Spanish mackerel total allowable catch in a manner that is fair and equitable to participants in all states, including North Carolina. Therefore, be it resolved, the Dare County Board of Commissioners ask the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council to immediately add at least 2 seats for North Carolina commercial fishermen to the Council Mackerel Cobia Advisory Panel, and to immediately schedule a 2020 update to the Spanish mackerel stock assessment. This is the 16th day of September 2019.
Thank you.
Is a motion on the floor to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Vice Chairman, seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Regarding the reentry process down on Hatteras, I was asked by the young lady who I talked to, and I worked really hard talking to people.
I knew that.
I had a charge in front of me to make sure that the control group was informed. I started in the mornings with people who were available and out, worked through lunch. I talked to a ton of people, probably 120 people over a 3-day period. And I'm not kidding, to that end, and in-person visits, and then probably another additional 80 to 90 telephone calls to the point where my earlobes hurt. And I hit a wall Friday night where I was just exhausted in a position there where this past Friday night where I could hardly even hold a conversation. So I did the legwork. The control group was, in my mind, properly advised. I know that these are reentry is not popular things, so we're dealing, and I understand it. I'm very sympathetic. These are emotional issues. We're talking about people's lives, and I get that. But we also have a responsibility to serve the greater good. For someone who has their life on parade out in the yard is counterbalanced by people who have car payments to make and have daycare to pay for. And it's a tough, tough call, but the greater good has to be served. I understand the heartache, but also I understand that the surest way to get your life back is to get your life back. And that's what we are. We are a hospitality industry out here where we take people in and we treat them because they do great work for us. Another aspect of this that resonated with me in the case of Hatteras is it is a national park. And if you're going to tell people, look, we're holding you out for another day or another couple of days or whatever, people will have a right to visit their national parks. You cannot tell somebody that they cannot come to the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. You cannot tell someone, in my way of thinking, that they cannot go to beaches that belong to the American public because you can't get in there. You can't tell people that they cannot go to the Graveyard Atlantic Museum because the National Park Service owns that property. They are a federal partner. And you have to weigh what is best. It is not popular. I go out and I take it. I welcome these remarks. Some of them are a little on the aggressive side, and that's fine. I've been on that side when I've had to voice my displeasure as well. But folks, it's the process that we have. And it's the process that has been built over years of experience. We go through this every time. People are not happy. Every time, I heard a comment made that, people over the bridge don't experience, and paraphrasing here, what we experienced down here. I remember Hurricane Irene was a big deal up here. It's a big deal. A lot of damage up here. Also, Matthew and Michael right after that. I remember sitting here in 2016 lamenting the fact that Belk Tyler, in the middle, had rain, had water inside of it. And we're going to continue to deal with unpopular, unpleasant issues like reentry on every storm. There will be boards sitting here long after we're gone, and you know what? There's going to be some unhappy people. And we do the best we can. We have no motive. I disagree with the assessment that it's the almighty dollar. That's not what's calling the shots here. What's calling the shots here is people getting their lives back together. In fairness, I appreciate the question was asked that, what's another day? Well, another day is somebody's mortgage payment. As many people told me they were ready to go back to work. I'm not an advocate for the businesses. I was an advocate for the people. Just as many people who were at these public hearings, at the public comment today, who were in that room and were upset. I wish the people who had talked to me, they did not have the rallying cry to bring the people in who supported the process that was done. But those people are out there because I heard from them. And all I can pledge to you going forward, I take the fact that that is my district that I represent very seriously. You are a Dare County Commissioner. You're not the Hatteras Island Commissioner. Hatteras Island does not belong to Hatteras Island. I'm sorry if that's unpopular. It belongs to Dare County. It's all of us. It's even if something were to happen up the beach here, the voice on that board, whether it's the Park Service or any other person, is going to have some say because that is the way it's done. And rather than belabor the fact anymore, that's just where I am. I will welcome your phone calls. You can catch me anytime. I'm more than happy. That is your right to talk to me. It goes back into our Constitution. It goes back 200 years. I mean, we think how bad we've got it now. You know, in our history, they used to tar and feather guy. You didn't dare go outside. I mean, that's a bad analogy, but, you know, we'll take the heat. Those decisions, that is what we are elected to do. This is something we do from our heart, not, because there's no perks in it. I'm going broke being a public servant. So, and it's just the way it is. All right, so that's enough on that. And Drew, while you're in here, I want to thank you. I want to thank the people that were in that EOC. I was impressed. I was blown away. I mean, I knew, but I watched people from social services. I watched people from all aspects of county life just say, all right, I'm putting my kids and my family on hold, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to sit in that little room like the 911 heroes do, and they're going to take the calls. You know, the phones ring 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're there. They're there, they're serving not just our people, but they're serving people who want to come here. And until you've actually seen what goes on in that building and the level of professionalism, I just cannot thank our county personnel, top to bottom, for the job that they've done. Now, since I'm on a roll, I love Collington, I love Kitty Hawk. I'm a product of this entire county, not just Hatteras. And I regret not having stats. If I'd had a chance to call Drew and get stats out of Collington and Kitty Hawk and other areas for Dorian, I would have done so. But here's some figures I want to bring to you. This is as of yesterday. The Cape Hatteras United Methodist Men operating under UMCOR, the United Methodist Committee on Relief, the North Carolina Baptist Men, CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, the churches, all working from the same list. I mean, there's been no turf issues. There's been no religious philosophy issues. Everybody is pulling the weight here. There were 333 houses that needed attention, okay? In a 2-day period, 114 houses came off of that 333. Some of them, were they light damage? Yes, there were. The amount of blue tarps that were done, folks, this was a Category 1. The call went out that this was a serious storm. You had to heed those. If this had been a Cat 2, the amount of roof damage we'd have been facing could have been catastrophic. There are still, as of yesterday, 134 properties that have serious water issues and mold, but we have a manpower force out there that is dealing with this. I want to say one other thing in regard to what I've witnessed. Again, I've been out there. I'm on the street to the detriment of my own family. I ran for office. I got elected. That's fine. I'm seeing at the Frisco Fire Department, I'm seeing at various places, when somebody is allowed back on the island, when our guests are allowed back into the county, maybe the only way they can help is to go to the restaurant, buy food, buy drinks, tip the daylights out of your server. If that's what they do to make a contribution, I salute them. I love them for it. I saw probably in excess, I'm going to throw a number out there. It's going to be ballpark. It's going to be close. But I saw this in the Frisco Fire Department. I've had it confirmed by the emergency relief groups. You have people who are allowed on the island, our neighbors from Virginia, who are coming down here to finish out their vacation. They are stopping into the Frisco Fire Department. I've got a couple hours here. I want to help. Will you put me on a work crew? I mean, you have to sign the form, but I'm seeing people who are coming onto the island and they're willing to go get dirty and lock arms with the home folks down there. And to that, I commend our visitors. They're making a contribution. I want to give a shout out to social services down there. Actually, all the county. It's not specific to Hatteras. This is Dare County Social Services. Got to give a shout out to Lee Bracey. She got married, I think. Okay. Ashley Jackson, Jessica Nonnenmacher, this is not a 9-to-5 job they're doing. They're answering emails they're running on pure adrenaline. And when things start to calm down a little bit, they're gonna crash. But I'm so proud. I know it sounds like a soundbite. The Coast Guard folks, the Park Service guys, people rolling up their sleeves and get people who are older people who probably have no business from a health standpoint doing it, but everybody has rallied around to make a difference. And we're going to need some volunteers for a long, long time coming here. But, folks, I'm really proud of the effort that was expended. I'm really proud of the personnel that is serving here. I'm so glad that we're here. And I can promise you, after seeing what happened with Florence and seeing what has happened with other storms, we're still trying to rectify what went on with Matthew. But here, we've got people back on the Outer Banks in a quick amount. Is it going to take a while for some of our people to get their lives back? Yes, it is. But they're looking to us and they're seeing that we get to work. We don't lollygag. We put our lives back together as quick as we can, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tobin?
Very well said. I too would like to give a shout out. I was getting a lot of phone calls the first day after the storm about the power being out. I'm sure all of us were. And so I called Tideland up. I knew the power was out here to Roanoke Island. I knew the power lines were down. So I knew the basic status of it was going to be a few days. But when I called Tideland, I didn't call them the next day. I called them 2 days after. And I just called their regular outage line, and I got a young lady, and I told her that I was one of the county commissioners from Dare County, and could I speak to somebody that could give me a pretty honest timeline on repairs? And she hooked me up with a fellow named Paul Spruill. Well, Paul and I became pretty good friends in the next 24 to 48 hours. He actually updated me every 3 to 4 hours with a phone call, letting me know where the crews were, what they found. Exceptional person and exceptional response on Tideland's part. So just a shout out to him saying thanks. Also, on October 1st this year, summer flounder season, which is not the flounders that we have in the Sound. We have southern flounders. Summer flounder are the flounders that are in the ocean. And it's trawl boat season. Well, after this storm, we're suffering the same hump in the Wanchese Channel that we suffered. I believe it was in Matthew, wasn't it, Bobby? The hump going into Wanchese. And we were able to get an emergency permit to dredge that. I received a call from Mark Brablick at Etheridge Seafood, and he said that their entire fleet of trawlers wants to come back and offload in Wanchese with the summer flounders. So I would like to ask the board to support, I guess, directing Bobby to get staff to pursue that emergency permit. And it's kind of good timing because we are supposed to have the Murden here the next week or so. So maybe if we could, when the Murden's going out of Wanchese, pick up a load and go dump it off the beach, everybody would win. So I don't know if we need to, what we need to do for that, but.
I'll tell you that Brent, our new waterways person, has already been in touch with the Corps. Is it a Corps channel?
I believe it is a Corps channel, I think.
We've asked them to do it out of their funds with their money and all that. I don't know where that stands, to be honest with you. I know we've made the inquiry, we were aware of the problem. I'll tell you that our normal funds that we use for Oregon Inlet aren't available to fund that. And so I'm not sure where we would, I don't know how much it's going to cost, and I'm not sure where we would fund it from. We would have to figure that out, but it can't come out of that account. So again, we're pushing it with the Corps. We'll see where that goes. And I'm not sure what else to add to that.
What is the outcome of a no?
I'm sorry?
I'm looking at Jim. What is the outcome of
You
no?
won't be able to get trawl boats in there.
And what does that mean?
That means they can't unload their catch in
They
North
take their
Carolina.
catch somewhere else.
Well,
Yeah,
They take it to
somewhere
Virginia.
else.
which in long term would,
affects our quota.
it makes our
Yeah,
quota
it
drop.
affects our quota.
My instinct is that if the dredge is here,
Exactly.
they'll likely do it, and they'll likely do it as part of their duties out of their funds, and we'll get it done. The problem becomes if their dredge isn't here, we don't have another dredge, and so it won't get done whether we got the funds or not. So anyway, we're working through that, and we'll let you know. We'll just figure out, I'll have to find out where we are with that, and try to get some kind of a schedule, if that's even on a schedule yet.
And just the last thing, I don't think that just this resolution with Dominion Power is probably going to be enough. I think we're going to need to bird dog them and really let them know that not only is it a power outage, but it's a major safety issue. If those power poles were to fall the other way and hit the buildings, start the buildings on fire, I mean, lives could be lost. It's a major safety issue, and they just need to get that thing resolved. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Tobin. Commissioner Ross?
Thank you. Danny?
Yes.
God bless you, man. Yeah. I listened to you, and I know you went through a lot, as did our chair and our county manager through this storm. Listening to all of the impassioned feedback during public comment, and I just really just had a curiosity question. The bulletin in question seemed to be number 16, which was issued on Wednesday, the 11th of September at 5:30, which announced the following day at noon, unrestricted access to all of Buxton, Frisco, all of Frisco and Hatteras Village.
All of Dare County.
Yes.
That's the final
All of Dare
step.
County.
Yep. Final one.
And I mean, I listened to these folks, and they were clearly deeply invested in it, and I empathize with them. Did you receive extensive notification Wednesday evening after the bulletin was issued saying, please stop, do not do this?
I had some people that advocated for that very thing, but I also had people who advocated for bring them in. I've got to make a living. I've got a mortgage to pay for.
I hear you.
So yes,
Okay.
again, you have to, the greater good, I know that sounds like a soundbite, but you have to do what is best for the collective group. If it's a small majority, it's still a majority.
Yeah,
The 4-3
not second
vote.
guessing at all, Danny, not at all. I was just wondering whether.
Yeah, I just, I know it's your time, you know, knowing what we know about what we go through with every Saturday and Sunday where people are coming on, when they opened up the Outer Banks for duck and crawl, I knew, I immediately came to my mind that people, they're going to crawl it, they're going to get to, it's going to be a zoo. And if there's ever a time to come down 17 and come through Alligator River where things are a little smoother, now's the time. And I know people can't just load up kids and drive through the night and come through, but I knew it was going to be a backup there, and had if it were my family had been evacuated, if I was out of town, I would have given thought to some alternative way to coming onto the Outer Banks, the other alternative, coming across Alligator River. That little extra 30-minute drive probably saved you 3 hours of sitting in a line with the folks who wanted to go. And also the power truck things, they had power issues in Currituck. Not sure how many of the people that were in that line coming off of Wright Memorial Bridge were serving Dare County. Currituck had a ton of electric problems. I know some people might not want to hear that, but when the call comes out to come on to the Outer Banks, you gotta get a move on.
Okay. I won't pursue any more on that. Separately, the Albemarle Commission will be meeting this week on Thursday, the 19th. We're going to have a small financial workshop in advance of the meeting where we'll discuss some of the presentation and analysis work that the Albemarle Commission does. We've had a lot of turnover there, so I'm going to go in early and spend some time with them. And then finally, I'm looking at the back of the room, sitting quietly, is my friend Kelly Harmon, who is someone that I really want to call out for an unbelievable amount of dedication and recognition on September 11th. Kelly was chair of the September 11th memorial ceremony in Nags Head. I was privileged and able to attend, and I just want to publicly thank you, Kelly, and those that worked with you to bring about that celebration in such a professional and respectful way. So thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. What I have to say is, I said it, went into great detail at the beginning of the meeting under Chairman's comments, but what I'll say to the folks in Hatteras is that all the comments that I received, I take them very constructively, and I will make sure, I took extensive notes, and I will make sure that the control group is aware of their concerns of this past storm, and I will be glad, I will share that with the control group, and hopefully we won't have another storm this season, but in the future that perhaps we learn from every situation, and hopefully we can work to improve upon what I felt like was quite a bit of dedication from the control group members. I mean, this went on for a week or more, and I was in contact with Commissioner Couch via phone, via text, via email, multiple times every single day. I was the same way with our emergency manager. My phone, both of them, hundreds of phone calls, tons of emails back and forth, and sharing every bit of that with the control group. And I just commend them for the work that was done. I know there's some concern about the leaders of the municipalities making decisions for Hatteras Island, but we got all the input that we humanly possibly could have gotten. Perhaps maybe we can do a better job next time, and we'll take that in consideration, and I'll share this with the control group. But no group worked any harder than this control group to look after the safety and welfare of our citizens. With that being said, Sarah, do you have anything on behalf of the Public Relations Department for us this evening?
I do have two things. One thing the county has continued to do is maximize the communication channels we have available to receive our emergency bulletins. You can get them text, phone call, email, subscribe it on our website, and we push them out through social media. I just want to point out, in the 11 days from when we posted the first evacuation notice to when the county was fully open for business again, we had 188,000 people visit the Dare County website a total of 414,000 times. We also sent out all 16 bulletins to the over 41,000 people who are currently subscribed to receive our emergency alerts. Another thing is tomorrow is the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program meeting from 3 to 6 p.m. here in our admin building. If you're a year-round resident of unincorporated Dare County and your property has experienced repetitive flooding, federal funding may be available to elevate your home to mitigate future flood losses. You can contact Brent Johnson in the planning department for more information. If you can't make it to the meeting, that's all right. He can walk you through the process. Applications for the grant programs are being accepted until September 27th. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Finance Director, Mr. Clausen, you have anything else for us this evening?
Two short beach nourishment items. I believe Coastal Science and Engineering was on the beach in Buxton on Thursday.
Yes.
Anyway, they advised us to do a post-storm survey. Last year for Florence, we ended up using the post-construction survey for the post-storm survey, so we didn't use our one free survey that we got with their 5-year contract. So this will be that free survey. And then going back to the Florence one, after talking with Coastal Science and Engineering and North Carolina Emergency Management, just so you know, we're not going to do what FEMA calls their alternate procedure, which is a kind of a settlement of a fixed cost. If you come out to the good for bids, you get to keep that money and use it for eligible cost. But if your bids are over, that puts the risk on us. And Hygiene thought that that risk was enough that we should not do it. So we're going to decline that offer. That's it.
Gotcha. Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Then is there a motion to adjourn until October 7 at 9 a.m.?
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner Tobin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Chairman. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.